Hello. I've come to share another wonderful nutmeg book with you. This is a nutmeg book. It's an elementary nutmeg book. It is a picture book, and it's a book called Ida Always. Ida was a polar bear, and she lived in the Central Park Zoo, right in the middle of the big city. And Ida had a best friend, Gus, who also lived in the zoo. And they were the only two polar bears, and they did everything together. They had their own caves where they would sleep. But in the morning, when the zookeeper would come and bring them some fresh fish, they would eat their fish together. They would swim together in the pond. They would play. I think they had a ball. They would play ball. They had lots of fun. But they just spent all their time together, like good friends like to do. Perhaps you have a good friend you like to spend lots of time with. Well, they had a very, very, very special friendship, and they lived together for a long time. But one day when the zookeeper came in the morning, Ida didn't come out of her cave, and Gus was really concerned. And the zookeeper told Gus that Ida was ill, and she had a bad illness, and that she was not going to live a very long time, which made Gus very, very concerned and quite sad and even quite angry. So perhaps you've had a pet that you've lost, or you had a friend that had to move so far away you could never see them again. And you know how before that happened, how worried you were and upset. Well, this is how Gus felt in the story. Well, there was some time still that they had together, and some days Ida wasn't feeling well and they couldn't do very many things, and other days they did things just like they always did. So they enjoyed their time together. But one thing they really enjoyed doing, because they lived in the middle of this New York City, they could hear the city. They could hear the trucks and the traffic and the horns beeping, and they could hear people's voices and children playing in the park. They could hear all of those sounds, but they couldn't see them because they were in the zoo, and the zoo, of course, is surrounded by a cage. So they would just hear all of these sounds of the city, and they knew it was there, even though they couldn't see it, because they could hear it. And Ida said something very wise. Ida said, "You don't have to see it to feel it." So in the end of the story, it is a sad story, but it's a story of good friends, and it makes you feel good to know their friendship was so very strong, because Ida does die in the story. But in the story, Gus remembers those wise words she said that made him feel so much more comfortable. He could remember her. He could remember all of those things they did, and he could feel comfort in his heart, even though he couldn't see his friend anymore. It's a very, very sweet story. You'll love the pictures. The pictures are by Charles Santoso, and the story I didn't mention is by Caron Levis. And if you love polar bears, you like it. If you love stories about friends, you like this story. And the pictures, like I said, the pictures are just great. And this is a true story. That's what I enjoyed most, to think that there really were two polar bears who lived in Central Park, and neither of them are alive anymore. But when they lived together, they were best friends. So someday maybe you'll go to New York City and visit Central Park and see the zoo where they lived, and think about all the other animals that live there, how close they must be and how much they'll miss each other if they can't be together. So this is a great story. I hope you read it. This can be one you can choose to vote on. Next spring you may vote to pick the Nutmeg Book Award winner. So I hope that you enjoy this story called Ida Always by Caron Levis and Charles Santoso.